What if you have to start all over again from scratch? Emotionally, can you deal with it?
3 months' time, I lost my whole network.
The main singer decided, I don't want to do this anymore.
I didn't climb all the way to the top for the world to see me. The reason I did it is for me to be able to see the world.
What's the worst thing about success? Is having it for a little while.
We were doing TV shows, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000.
I was always replacing the negative thought with a positive thought.
You can take my house, you can take my car, you can take my everything, but the one thing you can't take from me is my attitude.
Now, let me go back and be okay with doing a performance in front of 100 people.
We know that it takes time, and we know that if you make the numbers your friend and you do the work and you put in the hours, there's no way it's not going to work. Hey everybody, and welcome to today's issue of The Four Pillars. The four pillars, of course, are the four pillars of teaching and training we do here at Life Mastery Training. So today we have a really interesting subject. I love this subject. We're going to talk about starting over. Now, it could be starting over in a business for sure. It could be starting over because you just ended a relationship. It could be starting over in virtually any area of your life. And I know there's people watching today that are right there. You know what I mean? And you're in that mode. And each one of us has had numerous situations where we had a lot of success. And then for whatever reason, it went away and we had to start over. You know, my mentor used to say, what's the worst thing about success? Is having it for a little while. And I think there's a lot of people that, you know, they make a decision, you know, they come to a seminar, they read a book and they go, okay, I can do something special with my life. And again, it could be in any area of your life. You know, and maybe you were really out of shape and then you got in phenomenal shape, but for whatever reason, you're back to the other side of the scale, so to speak now, pardon the pun. So, you know, what do you need to do to bounce back so that you can have that success a second time? There's a lot of, in music, they call people one-hit wonders. If a band has one song and that's it, and you never hear from them again, they call them a one-hit wonder. We come from an industry in network marketing that is filled with one-hit wonders. I mean, people that got in the right company at the right time, with the right system, and they built a team and they made over $1 million a year. Then for whatever reason, that company went out of business, whether it was a regulatory situation, whether it was mismanagement inside the company. We know a little something about that. Whatever it might be, the company went down, and to do it a second time is really, really difficult for people. So, you know, what would you say, George? If you're, first of all, have you ever had a situation like this occur?
Of course, I mean, multiple times. But the most hard I can say is the first one, because it's the first time you experience this feeling. And I truly believe that the most important is to know how to control your thoughts and your emotions. I mean, the first time that happened to me, I feel like everything fall apart. It was hard in the beginning, and that was like in 2015 when the financial crisis hit in Greece and they had the capital control. And at that time in the network marketing company I was back then, I was very close to the highest rank, like 50 or 100 people away. And then this new rule came up that people couldn't pay or start a new membership or something in Greece. And in like 3 months' time, I lost my whole network.
Really?
So that was a really big hit. I mean, the emotion, I felt like I was losing everything that I was building for so long. And it took time in the beginning, the first couple of weeks, I didn't know what to do. I mean,
so you said you have to control your thoughts and emotions. Yeah. So what were some of the thoughts and emotions what was going through your head? What were you feeling?
I was feeling frustrating, of course. Okay. I had thoughts that maybe I cannot start rebuilding this again.
That's a big one.
And that was the time that I had to really control my thoughts, because the first thing that came to my mind is like, what doesn't break you make you stronger.
Which is a good thought.
And then I thought, if I did it once, why not to do it again?
Which is a good thought.
And then I said, if I did it the first time in like 2 years, let's say, I can do it faster because I have more experience.
Exactly.
But
That's
many
logical.
people, they
Yeah.
don't think like that, and they feel
Right.
like it's like I have to climb this mountain again.
Exactly.
So
Isn't
I
that
got
amazing though? I mean, it just truly, it's your thought. So you're saying, okay, I just want to hit the first, because this blows my mind. In the beginning of doing anything, you have no idea what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I look at the four of us starting in network marketing. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know any of the how-tos. So then you know them, you learn them, you teach them, you build the team. So you definitely know what you're doing. In the beginning, you have no training, no experience, no success, no finances, no confidence. The one thing you have, well, two things you have, most people have, is optimism and enthusiasm.
Right.
Optimism, enthusiasm. And here's what's crazy. So then it falls apart. You got to do it again, but you have training, you have experience, you have confidence, you know that you know how to do it. But where is the optimism and where is the enthusiasm? And that's why so many people have a hard time doing it a second time. So how did you fight the thoughts you were having? How did you fight the emotions? What did you do? Were there any
So
techniques?
sometimes it sounds like funny, and I had the same conversation with many people, is that the moment I started feeling that I had a negative thought, I was immediately replacing it with a positive thought. I mean,
Okay.
when the moment came to my mind, I cannot do it, immediately I said, I did it, so I can do it again.
Okay.
I was always replacing the negative thought with a positive thought. And I was always putting in my mind the positive feelings and emotions I have had when I was hitting a significant goal.
Man, you must have had some good training. I was his trainer back then. So I love that. But here's the problem, right? Most people are not aware of their thoughts at all. So what's going on to a lot of you right now, if you're going through this, is you're having these negative thoughts, which trigger the negative emotions,
Yeah.
but you're not even aware of it. So he was aware of it. So every time he had a negative thought, he replaced it, which is exactly what you should do, with a positive one. But if you're not even aware, it's terrible.
Many people, they don't realize that their thoughts create their emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, if I feel bad right now, the main reason is because I have bad thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So if I change the way the things I'm thinking, the thoughts I have, I can change my emotions.
The way my mentor told me is, it's like, imagine you're watching a TV show. When he taught us this, actually, he would say you got to go up to the TV show. So if you're watching a movie like The Shining, that's kind of a scary movie. Okay. You got to go up to the TV. That's how old we are. And change the channel. Some of you are going, what? What does that mean? So now you would just hit the remote, of course. But and if you go from The Shining to Dumb and Dumber or some hilarious show, it's a great analogy for if you're come on, for real. How many times have you watched a scary movie and you slept with the lights on and you were like freaked out? And on the other hand, you watch something else, it puts you in a completely different mood. So you hit the nail on the head, really. Your thoughts control your emotions. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on if you're controlling your thoughts, that triggers your emotion, and your emotion triggers what you do. Mm-hmm. So what about you? You've certainly gone through this.
So I went through this, but in my opinion, what plays a big role is your attitude, the philosophy, and the mindset you have around it. I'm a little bit romantic, as you know, when it comes on businesses. And one of the most inspiring stories of starting over, we were discussing this before, was Steve Jobs. He created everything with his partner in his parents' garage. Then he lost everything because of some wrong decisions he took. For example, hiring the Pepsi guy as a CEO of his company. And then he ended up being out of his own company, but he was in his early 30s, having tens of millions of dollars in his pocket. He didn't retire. He didn't say, okay, I'm going to live my life. He started over. He created a new company. He called his new company Next. And then he bought Apple. Apple got him back. And then Apple became what Apple became because of him. The reason I'm sharing this story is I heard Steve Jobs saying in one of his speeches that success is not about how much money you make, it's how much love you put in what you do. So if you are putting love in what you do and you have to start over, it's not painful. Let me ask you this. Let's say you need to start over your relationship with your wife. What was better, what you are going through right now or the first month of your relationship?
Right.
When you were expressing love more to your wife, first month or a decade later? When you were having sex more often, first month or a decade later?
Depends.
So think about it. Same with business. When are you more excited, first month or a decade later? So when I have to start over, I don't see this as a pain in the ass. I see this as a blessing because now it's time for me to put more love, to be more excited, to have a bigger vision, to feel stronger, to feel more useful, and to take action. So it's all about perception. That's the way I
You
see it.
said a couple of things I want to go back to. So first of all, you said if in
About
your marriage,
sex the first month.
I think you're just trying to get ratings. So you talked about if you're in your marriage and things are not great, perfect example and great advice. Go back to what you said was perfect. However, let's look at it a different way. Let's say you're in a long-term relationship and it's over and you have to start over. You know what I mean? It's a different situation.
Yeah,
So-
you do have to start over with a new person, right? Because the
I guess
relationship
that's
is
good because
over.
you get to have a lot of sex in the beginning.
Exactly.
That's where we should look at it
Exactly.
that
This
way.
is what I was gonna say. It's a new person. It's a new business, but it's the same emotion. It's the same attitude.
Well, I think what you were saying
are
about-
exactly the same steps.
Yeah, well, what you were saying as far as like putting, something you're passionate or that same amount of love.
Yeah, my whole message here is that the reward is the journey in everything you do. It's not the outcome, but the journey.
Yeah.
So if you truly and really believe that the reward is the journey, do you want to go through that journey over and over again?
But that's the key. Let's go back to why there's a lot of one-hit wonders in network marketing. Is I think a lot of them look at the journey. So again, this is such a good topic.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, all you have is optimism and enthusiasm. I don't know about you guys, but I thought I was going to get rich pretty quick. So I went charging in and ooh, it didn't happen fast. But once I was in it, I could see some slow, steady growth. And it took a lot of time. You don't plant a seed and have harvest overnight. It took a while. But then once I built it, it was an ass build. I was watching, I don't know the name of the corporation, but I was just watching a podcast the other day, and it was this super wealthy billionaire guy, and he said, "What advice would you give to a brand new person starting a business?" And the guy said, "I would tell him, don't do it." And you can see the guy hosting the podcast was like, "What?" But he said it's so hard, and it takes so much out of you. And if I had any idea how much stress, and there's been a lot of it was actually pretty hilarious, but. I want to sit on that for a minute because if you've built it, and we're talking about people who are starting over, you're saying the journey is the reward, and I agree with you. But if people look back at it, to your point, are you looking at the glass half empty or half full?
Yeah.
Because let's use the analogy of if you have a child. You have a child, right? We all have children. Well, you don't have children, but you're certainly working on it. I know you're, going to keep going until you have some. So young children are amazing, but they're also high maintenance, right? They're a lot of work. What they say, the days are long, but the years are short. So it's like the long days, a lot. And a lot of parents, if you have a child and then years later they look at having another one, or if you have two and you look at having another one years later, a lot of parents go, I don't know if I want to go through that, the terrible twos or the terrible threes or whatever. Where other parents go, oh my gosh, let's do it, because they look back at that. Yeah. Even though it's going to be challenging and it's going to be a struggle, it's worth it. And this is another thing we all know. are you focused on the prize or the price? The
price,
PRIZE or the PRICE? Because raising children, you definitely pay a price. But if you're focused on the prize of what you get out of it, then the price doesn't matter.
and the truth is you can't start over again if you don't have that mindset. If you don't believe that the reward is the journey, if you're not passionate, you can try to start over,
And people do.
but you're not going to be successful. You are not going to really start
Exactly.
over. So you got to convince yourself that the reward is the journey. Otherwise, there is no
And
way.
I think again, what people are missing is experience. What I said earlier, even with kids, I don't have kids, but I'm assuming that the second kid, with the experience you have, it's even easier to control.
It's
the whole
different. It's
situation.
different.
You have more experience. With
No, but to his point, in the
yeah,
beginning, you have this
definitely.
panic,
Yeah,
right? Like, I don't know what I'm
absolutely.
doing. Yeah, that's a good point. So,
Yeah.
so what I also want to get into, though, is we talked about this before we started filming. So it's like, again, I go back to where we all came from. So you start off, you have no status. You're a nobody, right? So
Yeah.
you hustle,
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you get a little recognition and,
Yeah.
you hit a couple of ranks and you're at a training and people know who you are and they want to take a photo with you. And then you become more successful and more successful. Maybe now you're on the cover of the magazine and maybe you're a featured speaker at one of the big events and like you're, flying first class. You're living the life. And now all of a sudden it all gets pulled away. And a lot of people are caught up that they want to maintain that image.
Yeah,
That's the diva image.
But here's the thing. It's like, what got you? This is a big one.
Yeah.
How did you get to the top of the mountain? Because you don't fall to the top of the mountain. You have to climb to the top. So you got to start climbing again. You got to roll up your shirt sleeves. And that's what he's saying. If you love the process, and here's what's crazy. Some of the people do love the process, but they're so focused, what are you thinking about, on their loss? A lot of people go into victim mode. Here's the thing. It's not fair. So we were in a company that did whatever, 5 billion over the time it was around. It got up to $1 billion a year. Company mismanaged inside and it went bankrupt and we all lost everything. Well, that wasn't fair.
Yeah.
So what do we want to do? Sit around and think about, again, Stephen Jobs could have become a recluse. Yeah, I know you hit on the story fast and I'm sure you know this, but he starts Apple out of his garage. And then he hires a guy, and the guy he hires gets with his own board, and they fire him. Now, at that point, he could have become an alcoholic. He could have killed himself. He could have disappeared and never been seen again. Instead, he started his own company. And you can't tell me he didn't start next to kick Apple's ass. Right. And if you don't know, back then, all Apple had was, the MacBook and all that stuff. There was no iPod, iPhone, iPad, anything. And now Apple's the number one brand in the world because of the technology created it next. And Apple started falling apart without him badly. And they had to beg him to come back. I mean, no matter what you're going through, it can't be as bad as what Stephen Jobs went through. It's the ultimate story of coming
The
back.
issue is many people, they have as a main motivation to be accepted, to be significant,
Right.
and to be powerful, to become famous, mainly to be accepted.
Right.
I remember years ago when I started network marketing, in my first 24 months, I hit the top rank of my first company. First 36 months, I was making over $500,000 per year. First 4 or 5 years, I was making over $1 million per year. So obviously, I changed my lifestyle. And I purchased some cars at the beginning. I changed the house. I bought a house. So one day I was driving a smart car. The smart cars, the small ones.
Yeah.
And a guy who knew that I had success with my company that changed my lifestyle, parked next to me at the traffic light. And he looked at me in the smart car and he said, I knew it, Stavros. I knew it. Yeah. And I'm like, you knew about what? He said, I knew one day you would lose everything with that company. I'm like, yeah, brother. You are right. I lost everything. I ended up with that smart car now. So he said, I knew it. And then he left. Yeah. 2-3 weeks later, he saw me again with a GTS car, like less than a
Mercedes,
month,
high-end
a
Mercedes.
Mercedes GTS car. And he said, "But you told me you lost everything." I told him, "Listen, I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't climb all the way to the top for the world to see me. The reason I did it is for me to be able to see the world."
Wow.
So
Love that.
you can believe whatever you want, but that's not my main motivation. My main motivation is not you to accept me because I'm successful.
I think that's
Dude,
one thing that a lot of people that, the people, obviously we've gone through personal growth development events, but most people haven't. So they start listening to the, hey, the people that try to safeguard you. Hey, are you going to try that? You should maybe get a job. You should maybe, do different things like that. So they, you obviously didn't let that voice affect you.
I think also it goes back to something I've learned from Mark. It's not what happens to you, it's how you react.
Yeah. Right.
And through the story that Mark shared with the company that we have been in the past, when the company shut it down, I saw people go back and get a real job 8 hours a day. Even they make serious money as a networkers. And some others, they just found a way to build something from scratch again and create a big successful stories. And they make much more money than they have done in the past.
And some have created much more success. Right?
So they got their experience. They didn't allow themselves to go back when they were before they got in network marketing, and they just thrive. So it's not what happens to you, it's how you react.
I love that. So 2 things I want to definitely hit on. So the first one is, when you start again, I cannot impress this enough. And again, it goes back for me, it was in network marketing. And I brought some people from my other company followed me, right? So that's normal. Like you're a big leader, you have a team, and people follow you. And in the beginning, I was just like, okay, on paper, my group looked like a superstar lineup. And I just kind of said, oh, I'll go from because again, I wasn't, in the beginning, you work 7 days a week, 10, 15 hours a day. And I was out of that mode and more into overseeing it mode. And truth be told, I didn't want to have to go back and do the hard work. So I said, oh, well, look at my team. I got this. What I didn't understand is that team is just not the same team. They're not this. They're the same exact human beings. But in the first company you're in, you fall in love with the company and you fall in love with everything, the executives, the comp plan, the this, the that, the product. So now we transplant people over, but they're just not the same. They're just not. So it took me 9 months of looking at them and keep going, come on, what do you guys do?
The hunger wasn't the same.
Oh my gosh. So then what finally happened to me is I realized I have to literally start all over again. So that's the big thing. What if you have to start all over again from scratch? Emotionally, can you deal with that? Well, and the same thing you were saying, every time I saw people, I have a pretty nice home in Dallas, and people would go, so are you still living in the same place? I'm like, yes, we're still living in the same place, but people were sitting there waiting for me to fail. And for a while, that was really heavy on me. And then it's like, I remember something my mentor said, man, you can take my house, you can take my car, you can take my everything, but the one thing you can't take from me is my attitude. Right. So the bottom line is I just relaxed and I went back in what we call phase 1. And I brought a guy named DJ Barton, who's part of our friend group here, definitely supports Life Mastery. Another guy named Kale, and they had no viable success in the industry. And I built both of them, and through the 2 of them, created another enormous sales team to get back to the earning level I was at before that. And it's got to be the mindset. There's one other thing I want to say is that the other part, one of my favorite things to teach about at a seminar is in the Bible, it says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. Well, so again, your conscious mind can only think about one thing at a time if you don't really understand what that means. A mustard seed's that tiny. So if you have that much faith, you can move a mountain, which in biblical times was a metaphor for the impossible. If you have an itty bitty amount of faith, it doesn't say you need a lot of faith. It says you need the tiniest amount of faith. But if you understand the way your brain works, you can't have two thoughts at one time. If you can, you're schizophrenic. So I'm hoping you can't have two conscious thoughts at one time. So if you have just a mustard seed of faith, it's a faith thought. Just a little bit, like right now, things may be so bad, but force yourself to do what George did and think about something positive, something good. But the opposite of a mustard seed of faith is a mustard seed of doubt. And that's what people don't understand. You have to have no doubt. When I got successful, my first car, my first Mercedes, my license plate was zero doubt, because that's how I got there, with zero doubt. Now, here's the problem, what I'm leading up to. If you have a ton of doubt in your head, this is the big one. What if I build it again and it fails again? What if I fall in love again and in a relationship doesn't with you? So you have to get rid of every mustard seed of doubt. Just because it failed once doesn't mean it's going to fail a second time. And it could fail a second time. And it could fail a third time. But the bottom line is you can't think that way, or you'll never have the strength and confidence to build it again the way you did the first time. Yes?
Absolutely.
You can't be living in fear, of that constant, like, what if, just go and enjoy the process, like you said, fall in love, and just keep on, just loving it every single day. With me, not relating to network marketing, but I take it back to like when I used to be in a band. I was in a band, the first band I was with, and, things were going great, successful. We were on TV, and we were, had a recording contract, all that. And then the main singer decided, I don't want to do this anymore. Well, he was kind of the face or image of
lead
the band.
singers, man.
Yeah. So after that, it was kind of like, so all, a couple of us in the band were kind of.
And you're a drummer. If you don't know that, Monaco's a great drummer.
So now I'm like, okay, but that's what I love to do. I love, playing drums. So now I get into my second band, and instead of comparing it to the first one,
which is another
it was like,
big
okay,
problem.
Let me go ahead and just put the same amount of love, the same amount of appreciation I did, get to know my coworkers now, appreciate what they do and bring. And the other thing is, we were doing TV shows, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000. Now let me go back and be okay with doing a performance in front of 100 people. And still have as much enthusiasm and be as excited as if it was the 10,000.
But I'm going to end our show with this. That's exactly where we are right now.
Yeah.
Like, the deal. We're doing shows with World Ventures, 25,000 people regularly, at least 5,000. In the U.S., our shows were at least 15,000. So but this is exactly what we're doing right now. We love the process. We love teaching. So right now, our events are hundreds of people, but they will be thousands and then tens of thousands. And again, it's like no mustard seed of doubt. We know that it takes time, and we know that if you make the numbers your friend and you do the work and you put in the hours, there's no way it's not going to work. So we're excited you're coming on this journey with us. And our next big event coming up is called The View from the Edge. So go ahead and check that out. up? What's holding you back? What is your problem? What's stopping you from living the life God intended you to live? You need to step up right now. This isn't just a seminar. This is your life. That is our premier event. That's the most unique one we do. In one of our podcasts coming up here in the near future, we're going to talk all about that event and how it takes place with what's called edutainment. And I'm telling you, it's going to be absolutely fabulous. But we're done for today. Hopefully that served you. And hopefully you can just, listen, it's as simple as rebooting your phone or your computer. Just hit that button, reboot, and start with a fresh new attitude and go not to the top of the mountain again, go beyond where you've ever been before in your life.